Welcome everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to see you all here today and to have people joining online. Thank you very much for your time. Today we're going to be talking about climate change, body image, eating behaviours and wellbeing. And I'm very excited that we have members from the International Academy of Body Image, Eating Problems and Health with us today. So this is obviously an IAS, Institute of Advanced Studies event. It's a spotlight event. It's hosted by myself, Dr. Hannah White. So I'm Senior Lecturer in Psychology in the School of Sport, Exercise and Health Sciences, and my colleague, Dr. Carolyn Plateau, who's a reader in Applied Psychology in the same school. And I just want to say, as we start off, a big thanks, if I can hit the right button, to the Biddle Family Scholarship for providing support to enable this event to happen. So I'm not going to talk too much about what the Academy is, because we've got a talk. We're starting off with talking about that today, but I am going to introduce who we have visiting us today. And I really hope I say everybody's names correctly. I have checked this already. So from Canada, we have Professor Jacinthe Dion from the University of Quebec, UQTR, in Canada. We've got Professor Aimé from the University of Quebec, UQO. From Spain, we've got Professor Alvaro Sicilia Camacho from the University of Almería. And from Japan, we've got Dr. Naomi Hayami from Osaka Metropolitan University. And from Italy, we've got Professor Gianluca Coco from University of Palermo. Palermo. Oh, so close. Just at the end. So thank you so much for coming to join us in person today. And online, we have two of the Academy members as well. We've got Dr. Esben Strodl from the University of Queensland, University of Technology, and we've got Dr. Rachel Rodgers, who's joining us from America, and she's from Northeastern University. So we've got a really great bunch of people who've come from various countries to join us today, and you're going to hear more about the Academy as the talk unfolds. So some of this talk, as you may guess, will take place online, and some of it will take place in person. So what can you expect today? We've got an introduction to the Academy, which is going to be led by Esben, who's going to join us online. You can see him in the corner already. The Academy focuses on doing cross-cultural research. So this is why we have so many international colleagues in the room. We're going to talk a bit today about the rationale and the theoretical model for what the current research project that we're doing, which focuses on climate change, body image, mental health and eating behaviours among young adults. And that's going to be presented to us by Dr. Rachel Rodgers. We're then fortunate, because this research has been running for a little bit already, to have some recent research findings. So we're going to be getting some hot off the press preliminary findings from Esben and Gianluca as well. And then I think it's particularly interesting with research that involves multiple countries and multiple colleagues to reflect on what that process is like. So the Academy does very large-scale research studies, so I think it's really helpful for us to get an insight into the processes, some of the benefits of this, but also some of the challenges with different processes involved in conducting cross-cultural research. And we're lucky to have several colleagues who are going to be reflecting on their own experiences of this process. Going to finish the discussions today with a roundtable discussion in terms of experiences of maintaining successful and unfunded international collaborations. So how can other people follow the same model that the Academy has? How has this worked for us? How has it made it happen? So the Academy formed in 2016, and Carolyn and I were invited to be part of it in 2022. So we're joining after the first studies already established, and delighted to be part of it. So we're going to now talk about the main study that focuses on climate change, which hopefully you're all interested to hear about today. So I'm going to hand over to Esben to give a bit of an introduction about what the Academy is, so you can hear more about it.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, hello, everybody. So just going to give you a little bit of an overview of the origins of the Academy and I guess how we came together, how we function a little bit, so forth. So give a bit of a context for the other presentations that will follow me. So the Academy was born out of our two founding mothers, Lena Riccadelli and Marita McCabe, two outstanding international researchers from Melbourne, Australia, who had really extensive research collaborations, connections with really key researchers throughout the world. And they got together and chatted about, I guess, the research they were doing and their desires to, out of all the collaborators they were working with, to handpick a few that they, I guess, particularly saw promise working with, and to start a new research collaboration. And so they handpicked a group, and we met first in 2016. So this is our 10-year anniversary this year. We were lucky enough that Gianluca housed us at Palermo. And there were 15 academics to start with. We came from those countries listed there. And we were quite a diverse group. There were researchers there into body image, and probably predominantly body image, some into eating disorders and some into health. I just sort of tagged along to some instance. At the time, I didn't have a very big research profile, but I'd known Lena for quite a few years, in that I'd served as the national chair for the College of Health Psychologists in Australia for 4 years previous to that, and had gotten on well. So she was kind enough to invite me along to this group. And we started off really just trying to work out, what do we want to research, given that there was such a diverse range of researchers. So the group really started off by forming a group that Lena and Marita thought would gel well, who were competent researchers and who they liked working with, more so than an overarching specific research topic. But through the meeting at Palermo, and then our subsequent meeting at Montreal, we nailed down a specific research project, which, given the diversity of the research, was also diverse in looking at a biopsychosocial model of eating disordered behaviour, body image, and so forth. And we've tried then to meet every year to continue that research project and start a new one. Like everyone else, we were hindered for a few years due to COVID, but each of the members of our group have taken turns to house us and host a meeting like we're doing today here in Alvaro. And so the current, we've grown from then, so from that original group of, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 countries, to 19 countries now. We have a core group of members that have continued to be part of this collaboration over the years. There's been a few that sort of dropped out, a few that's come in along the way, but we've had this sort of core group along the way. But just for this last project, we've also had some additional new members joining from all over the world. So adding South America, we got a little bit more from Europe, East Asia, South Asia, and from Africa. So that we really are a generally international group covering all the main continents and gaining quite a diverse view of measures of, in this instance, worry about climate change and eating behaviours and body image and so forth, which makes what we're doing really, really exciting from our point of view. So in terms of how we function, so we have an annual meeting where we spend a bit of time talking about the research, planning it, organising it, making action plans and so forth. And then in every instance, we've also had an associated research conference where we've been able then to share some of our research findings and disseminate that locally to the university that we're being housed at. In between our annual research meetings, we hold Zoom meetings every couple of months to track base to how we're going and to problem solve and to make further decisions to help ensure the implementation of the research that we're doing. As you can imagine, there's lots of email communication then too. either sort of bulk emails out to the whole group or specific emails to specific researchers to ensure that things are progressing along. As you can imagine, there's a lot of email discussions and decisions, and so we have shared files on Google Drive to house the final decisions and resources, paperwork, ethics applications and so forth, surveys that we all use to make sure that we are using the most up-to-date versions of whatever we've decided upon. And probably a main point to remember about our group is that we don't have an overarching funding source for the whole collaboration. So we all do this as volunteers, in addition to all the other research and teaching that we might do. There's no general funds that funds all the activities, but there have been along the ways times where particular members have donated some of their funds that they have, research funds, to help us out. So when we started off, Marita kindly donated some significant research assistant time to help us put together our ethics application and our survey. The second time around, Charlotte donated research time to help us similarly to put together initial ethics application and online survey and so forth. But otherwise it's done through donations of our own time. Our first survey, study that we conducted, we surveyed over 6,000 young adults from 8 different countries. It was a large study with quite a few variables, but the overarching goal was to look at a biopsychosocial model of disordered eating behaviour, body image, measures, BMI as well. And that research study resulted in, so far, 11 Q1 articles and 1 book. I don't expect you to read all those publications listed there, or the text of that all, but just to give you a bit of an impression that we have been quite productive and been fortunate that all our publications have been published in high-ranking journals. So it's been a successful collaboration. In making those publications, we set up subsets or little working parties of groups of 2, 3, 4, 5 researchers within our collaboration who focus on a particular topic, and they facilitate a large part of the data analysis and writing, and then send it out for the rest of us to review and add our thoughts and pieces. So we all contribute to each publication, but there's a working party that focuses on each one of those publications to press forward. Our second study, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because I don't want to steal the thunder of the other presentations, but same sort of vein. No, we got a lot of collaborators from different countries. We focusing on university students to try and manage some of the cross-cultural variants by having participants who have a similar level of education and literacy, and we hope to sort of recruit between 500,000 from each country and compare differences and look at similarities in perceptions of climate change, worry, body image, eating behaviours, and mental health. So if I was to reflect on what's our secret to what I think has been a really successful research collaboration, I think I can put it down to one thing. And when I reflect upon it, it sort of surprised me a little bit about what this factor is, because I actually disagreed with it when I first heard it. But in our first meeting in Palermo, and then also reiterated when we met in Montreal, Marita was particularly insistent that we had a semi-closed group, and that only researchers could join our collaboration if they were nominated by an existing member who knew them quite well and could vouch for both their character and their competency. And I remember when Marita sort of first expressed this, and expressed this a few times, I thought, no, that's going to be so restrictive. We want bigger is better, and we want to just have more and more research come in so we can have a bigger study. But over the years, I've come to realize just how important that rule is. And the reason is that I think what makes our group successful is that we all get on really well. We respect each other's competencies and abilities. I've never detected anyone trying to take control or make decisions that were for their own personal gain. We all volunteer our time. We help in and jump in when somebody needs help. And I think that teamwork has been so much more important than any policies or processes that in terms of how often we meet or something like that. And just on a personal note or disclosure, what it means to me is when I first got, well, in 2015, I'd been the national chair of the College of Health Psychology for 4 years and trying to build my research profile, but just had a really long series of bad luck with collaborators where I felt either exploited by strong researchers or struggling to have success with research projects with other researchers who just probably weren't so competent with research. And I got to the point where I just felt so exasperated and frustrated that I actually started to question whether this was the right career for me and whether I should just try and choose something else. And, I got to a point where I literally prayed and asked God to help me to get connected with some good, kind researchers who just want to do good in the world. And literally about 2 or 3 months after that, Lena contacted me and asked me to be part of this group. And it was literally an answered prayer. I've really respected and enjoyed working with this collaboration. It has literally, I think, saved my career as a researcher and helped me stay in it because I think we get on so well and we support and help each other so well. And I think that has been the secret to our success, is that one membership rule. And having somebody come in who might have been dominating or self-serving just would have ruined the experience for everybody, given that we didn't have any funding and we were volunteering our time. And this is my final slide. And I just wanted to present this as reinforcing what I think has been our success. And so I contacted Marita a couple of weeks ago asking for her ideas about how the academy was put together and so forth. And she gave me permission to share this quote with you all. So this is what Marita said, who put us all together. She said, "We found it extraordinary that everybody we invited to join the group immediately signed up and contributed an enormous amount of time and energy to the venture. There was no dissension, just a cooperative experience, discussing all of our ideas to create an amazing study. We were all in it together with no one taking charge. No one pulled rank. There was an enormous amount of respect and valuing of ideas that were put forward. This was a group of highly talented, committed academics. That is why they were chosen. We all found it extremely exciting to work together in such a cooperative manner." And I think that's what's helped us to be successful. It's helped us stay together for 10 years in spite of challenges like COVID that could have derailed us, despite having no money or funds to do it. That's been the heart of our group. And if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about it, you can just type in International Academy of Body Image, Eating Problems and Health. We got a website and you can find out a little bit about our members, publications and so forth. Thank you for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Esben, for those words and sharing your thoughts about it. So Esben will be joining us again. You can't rest just yet, even though it's the middle of the night. We're going to hand over to Rachel Rodgers now, who's joining us from America, and then we'll be back with you shortly. But thanks again, Esben. That was brilliant. I'll hand over to you. Nice to see you.
Hi. Nice to see you too, Hannah. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be virtually with you today. I'm so sorry that I'm not actually there in person. And I don't think I can really start without saying how much I echo all the things that Esben just said about what a wonderful group this has been to work with and how extremely grateful I am for all of the work that we're doing together. That being said, I will be speaking today about the background and the theoretical groundings of the work that our international group is conducting and providing some rationale and our theoretical model as we move forward with this work. We know that eating disorders, eating behaviors, and other appearance change behaviors, as well as body image concerns, lie at an intersection of mental health and food systems. And for this reason, amongst others, climate change is an extremely important issue. We know that climate change is already happening and impacting food and eating. And regardless of where you might be on the globe, there is no doubt some way in which you will have already observed this happening. We also know that it is a systemic issue, and the graph here that you'll see represents in different colors the areas of academic disciplines that are involved in studying the impact of climate change on eating behaviors and food. And it ranges from things like astronomy to recursion theory, which is part of mathematics. I've no idea what it actually is, but it clearly demonstrates that there is a very wide applicability and impact of these issues. Nevertheless, despite the extreme relevance to eating behaviors and body image and other health behaviors, we really know very little at this point about the ways in which climate change is affecting these dimensions. Just a few notes of background to set the stage for what everybody else will be saying. Body image, we can consider as being a range of feelings and thoughts and behaviors, some of which lie towards the left of this slide and are problematic. And this is when we see body image being rigid. It's in the foreground for people. It's a source of distress. There is a focus on behavioral body change efforts to reduce these negative internal experiences, and it's very corseted by societal discourse. On the contrary, helpful, positive, adaptive body image is flexible, it's in the background, there's little to no emotional or behavioral impact, it's accepted, and it's an embodied experience. Similarly for eating behaviors, problematic ones are likewise rigid and rule-driven. They can present as restricted or disinhibited. Eating is experienced as effortful and is often weight and shape oriented. And eating may also occur as an emotion regulation strategy. On the contrary, when eating is adaptive, it's flexible and varied, it's internally regulated, it's comfortable and enjoyable, wellness-oriented, and is responsive to internal cues of hunger and fullness. So given this, what do we know about climate change and the way in which it might be related to some of these experiences? One of the best established risk models for problematic body image and eating behaviors is the model in which negative affect and weight concern, as well as food preoccupation, come together to produce disordered eating. Negative affect can include all sorts of negative internal experiences. So we refer to negative affect for things such as anxiety, such as depression, such as a variety of worries and concerns. And similarly, food preoccupation is the extent to which food is problematic and uncomfortable and present in the foreground on people's minds. And so together, these risk factors are well supported as determinants of eating problems. As you just saw briefly in the previous presentation, if we think about climate change, we can identify ways in which it might affect and likely exacerbate all three of these factors. Climate change is worrisome at best, it's traumatic at worst, and so there's a clear impact on negative affect. It may increase weight and shape concerns through a number of pathways that we'll talk about briefly next, including overall increases in temperature. And it is also likely to impact food preoccupation because of the effects on agriculture, on food systems, on food availability, and food security, as we'll talk about. Given all this, there are a number of extremely good reasons why there would be a relationship between climate change and eating behaviors and body image. So I'll briefly review some of the theoretical pathways that I was just mentioning, and I'll touch specifically on food access and security, the elevations in temperature, concerns related to food safety and eco-anxiety, and then some indirect impacts that include the negative affect pathway more indirectly. Climate change leads to a number of modifications in agricultural environments, one of which is the lower availability of water and the greater frequency of natural disasters in food-producing areas. And these elements together have important impacts on cost and availability of fresh foods, which in turn increases food insecurity. Food insecurity is the construct that refers the degree to which people have adequate access to food, and it is typically separated into a severely food insecure group, in which many people in a family unit are going without food for several days, a moderate severe insecure group where there are uncertainties and maybe some people in the family don't always have adequate access to food. We note that when that occurs, typically the adults go without food for the benefit of the older and younger people who are seen as being more vulnerable and more in need of the resources. And then a food secure group. It's well documented that there is a relationship between food insecurity and eating disorders, which is often perhaps contrary to what people might expect. There's a stereotypical belief that if there isn't access to enough food, you probably don't have a disordered eating pattern. And on the contrary, we know that food insecurity does not mean that there's a continuous absence of food, but rather periods of scarcity and then periods of abundance around, for example, food banks being accessible or paychecks coming in, and that cycling through the periods of scarcity and abundance can precipitate binge eating. As noted, climate change will result in changes to the availability of foods and their costs, leading to food insecurity. And food scarcity may lead to overall population weight reduction, as well as this alternating between periods of scarcity and abundance. And weight reduction in itself is also a risk factor for eating disorders through increased preoccupation. And this is something that has been shown for a very long time, for example, with starvation studies. Increased temperatures may also lead to changes in the food industry as conserving foods, transporting foods becomes more difficult, and a lower availability of fruits and vegetables and water-intensive cereals such as rice, which we know is a staple food in the diets of millions of people, leading to the food industry likely developing substitute products, which will be highly processed, and highly processed foods are also documented to be related to higher levels of disordered eating. This is just an example of the way that the food industry intervenes in disordered eating patterns. And so engineered foods are where we see the effects of highly processed foods, but overserving and overconsumption, which can, of course, occur in an alternating period of scarcity, as well as diet foods, and perhaps here, more importantly, health claims, which may also become an area of focus of the food industry once preoccupations around food safety occur. And finally, a last point here is that rising sea temperatures are linked to lower marine food security, which may exacerbate these effects even more. The second pathway is elevations in temperature. The data here are scarcer, but there is a signal that warmer weather may increase body exposure and then subsequent body dissatisfaction and dieting. We tend to see levels of appearance preoccupation being slightly higher at the population level in warmer climates. This may also result in metabolic shifts due to shifts, sorry for the typo, very unfortunate, shifts in temperature and elevation. And we also know that higher temperatures are associated with high levels of interpersonal violence and poorer mental health, particularly when they are unusually high temperatures for an area. So compared to the geographic baseline, we know that heat waves, for example, are something that increases mental health concerns substantially. Concerns and eco-anxiety may also result from modifications of climate change to the air and water quality. We have already seen over the past 10 to 15 years the emergence of disorders that are termed orthorexia nervosa, that center on food quality rather than shape and weight concerns. There is also accumulating evidence that eco-anxiety and related climate concerns are associated with a range of mental health concerns. And more specifically here, it's very likely the eco-driven changes in diet may exacerbate eating concerns. If, for example, a person believes that there are particular foods that may have an impact on the environment, but those are preferred foods, and therefore they try to avoid them, but this leads to cravings, despite the motivations for restriction, which here would be climate related, this could still generate a range of disordered eating behaviors. And finally, as I mentioned, there are some indirect pathways. We know that disordered eating, as well as things like excessive exercise and the other range of body-related behaviors that I was mentioning earlier, are highly comorbid with trauma, anxiety, and other mental health disorders such as depression, as well as substance abuse. And trauma and vicarious trauma related to natural disasters have been shown to be associated with eating disorder symptoms. By vicarious trauma, we refer to things that are experienced on the global level largely due to media coverage. More and more, we are exposed to very vivid media coverage of, for example, extreme weather events that are happening at the global level. And this is not only through commercial media outlets such as television, but also user-uploaded content from those places. And what's unique about that type of content is often that it's unedited, which has a number of benefits in certain cases related to appearance. But when we are thinking about images that could be traumatic, the lack of the additional framing that is to some extent provided by, for example, a commercial news channel can make its impact even stronger. So at a global level, we are part of a community, or at least invited to view what is happening to communities that are affected by these traumatic events. This is often accompanied for those communities by decreased resilience, an impact on social support and other relationships that are broadly based protective factors against mental health disorders. And so the taking away of those social nets might also exacerbate concerns. And there was also strong evidence during the COVID pandemic that there was an increase in eating disorders for a number of reasons. And we are on the very verge of other pandemics, as we know. And so those effects may also contribute indirect risk factors for eating disorders. A very last word on protective factors. There is really very little data here, but it's something that we as a group are interested in, is that some stances or attitudes towards climate change may be more helpful than others. For example, there's emerging support for the fact that externalizing stances, so anger, activism, stances that allow anxieties and preoccupations to be expressed, have been associated with more positive well-being and therefore may be protected. And similarly, at the social level, social context in which access to fresh local foods is facilitated may also be protective. So that was just a very brief overview of the theoretical basis of our large collective work. And I welcome questions, but otherwise we'll hand over to those who will start presenting some of our initial findings. Thank you for your attention.
Great, brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing that. Really, really helpful to see, and I'm sure everyone in the room enjoyed talking through those different levels and different layers that we are exploring. So we've got fortunate enough to have two colleagues presenting some initial findings. So we're going to go to Esben first online so that he is able to get some rest because it is the middle of the night. So I think, Esben, are you happy to share your slides with us to present your findings first?
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant.
All right, hopefully you can see those slides. Okay, so giving this presentation in conjunction with one of my colleagues, Hendy, who's a professor from Indonesia. Indonesia has probably one of the most successful recruitments in our group and collected a lot of participants already. So it allows us this sort of preliminary findings from their group. So if you don't know, Indonesia lies just above Australia and in between Australia and the Philippines and Malaysia and so forth. It's a large country in terms of islands. There's about 17,000 islands as part of Indonesia and a really large population. Australia's got about 28 million people. Indonesia has 288 million people, so 10 times the size of Australian population. They are largely a Muslim country. I think it's about 87% Muslim and about 10% Christian. And even though a large country with lots of manufacturing and agriculture and natural resources, still around about 9% of the population fall within the poverty range. And so they're considered a developing country with, some financial challenges there as well. We surveyed, it was a bit over 1,000 participants, but after weeding out a number of exclusion criteria, it's about going to show you data from 839 participants. So majority were female, about 60% female. They tend to be younger. These are university students, averaging age about 20. Most, you can see that. I'm going to try and move this screen. I can hide that. Were undergraduates and some masters, very few PhD students. Most were lived alone or with their family. There was a relatively good spread of socioeconomic status there, that sort of ranking of perceived ranking of their socioeconomic status. Community groups, so very few had diagnoses of a mental health diagnosis or an eating disorder diagnosis. And I'm not going to show you data from all the variables, of course, but just a bit of a snapshot. But I wanted to particularly focus on these two key variables: climate change worry and eco-related eating behaviours. And you can see that I've got some examples of what climate change worry scale measures. 10 items, things like I worry about climate change more than other people. I tend to seek out information about climate change in the media. I worry about how climate change may affect people I care about. So questions really about worry or anxiety about climate change, how it's going to affect oneself and other people. And then the other key variable we measured was eco-related eating behaviours. Again, 10 items. Questions like I avoid eating meat due to concerns about climate change. I try not to waste food due to concerns about climate change. I try to eat less because of my concerns about climate change. So we've got some questions about worry about climate change and some about eating behaviours due to climate change. Within this group or population that we surveyed, pretty clear that Indonesian university students do worry a lot about climate change. So on the scale, it can range from 10 to 50. The mean was 35. And you can see there from the graph there, the majority had quite significant levels of concern about climate change. And you can understand that given the context that Indonesia is a country where there is concerns about food availability. Even though they produce a lot of food, they have a lot of natural disasters in terms of cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis, and so forth. So there's lots of reminders about the impact of the environment and climate upon their lifestyle. And you can see that sort of borne out the fact that there's a lot of worry there about climate change. In terms of who worries, slightly higher in female university students than males. Those with a little bit more education, a master's degree, are worried more than those in undergraduate. No real difference depending on where you lived, but a weak correlation there with socioeconomic status. The higher level of socioeconomic status, the more they tended to worry about climate change, not just a small effect. And in terms of eating behaviours due to concern about worry, no gender difference, but same finding that more likely to change your eating behaviour, eat because of your concern about the environment, the more education you had. Again, no difference depending on where you lived, but again, a weak sort of correlation there with socioeconomic status. As you could expect, there is a correlation there between worrying about climate change and eating based upon concerns about the climate change. Quite a strong correlation there. No real difference between males or females. But, you know, what is that relationship due to? Is it due to climate change worry at all, or could it be due to general anxiety and psychopathology or eating disorder-related behaviours? And so we've tried to explore that as well. These are just bivariate correlations. The left-hand column is the total sample, and then we've got males and females, and looking at the correlation there with climate change worry. And you can see the dark green is statistically significant at less than 0.01. A lot of those variables were related to climate change worry, but you can see particularly the GAD2, so anxiety was related, which you'd expect. But interesting also perceptions of body image. Those who had a greater desire for being thin and having low body fat were more likely to have high levels of body change worry. Those who restricted their eating, more likely to have a climate change worry. Those who engaged in binging. And so with the eating related behaviours, again, somebody can see the relationship between eating eco-related eating behaviours and body image and eating pathology. And so important then to see, well, how much is climate change worry related to eco-related eating behaviours after controlling for general psychopathology, anxiety and depression, and eating pathology. And so this is a multiple regression analysis with all those variables in there. Explains 26% of the variance of eco-related eating behaviours. And you can see even after adjusting for GAD2, which is anxiety, the PHQ2, which is depression, and after adjusting for eating pathology in terms of body shape, weight overvaluation, restricting their eating due to eating pathology, body dissatisfaction, climate change worry was still significantly related to eco-related behaviours and a moderate effect size there. So there's something there unique that those who worry about the climate change do change their behaviour, and it's not due to them being anxious or depressed or having eating pathology. Flipping that over though, interesting enough, the same sort of pattern happens there for eating pathology. So if we look at the predictors of binge eating, even after controlling for anxiety, depression, and eating pathology, you can see that climate change worry still significantly related to binging. So the link between worrying about your climate change and binging is not due to associated anxiety and depression or eating pathology, something unique there, which is important for us to know and identify in terms of understanding that pathway, and that there is, room for interventions there. That people who worry about climate change are more likely to eat or change their eating behavior, but they're also more likely to engage in pathological eating as well, such as binging. And so there's a lot there for us to unpack and understand. And as we go along, we'll add in more variables into those models and try and understand those pathways. But interesting that even in what might be culturally diverse countries to at least Australia, and I would suspect the UK, that climate worry is a significant issue and important for us to investigate and understand how that affects body image, how it affects healthy and unhealthy eating behaviours, so that we can develop interventions to try and reduce pathologic eating and unhealthful body image issues related to climate change. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Esben, for presenting those initial findings. So I think it's worth just highlighting to everyone that obviously we've got some really interesting initial findings that have come out of one country's data collection. The Academy are actually doing this project across 19 countries. So while we've got them in country-specific preliminary findings, the goal at the end obviously will be to look across the data from multiple countries to be able to look for patterns across, and also you can start to see how things might differ based on geographical regions. So lots of future things to discuss to build on this, but really, really helpful to have some initial findings today to just highlight how important people's perceptions of climate change is in terms of their eating behaviour. So thank you again, Esben, and thank you for joining us today and for presenting so far. Just, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Okay, good night.
Good night, yes. Okay, great. So we're joined next by Gianluca. So you're going to present some of your preliminary findings as well to build on these. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I will also show some preliminary data of a study that we are running with two different samples, one in the United States and one in Italy and Germany, so European countries, to explore the EQ concern, disordered eating behaviors. So, as we have listened by Esben and Rachel, we know that there is a link between the climate change and mental health. So there is an association between mental health problems and the eco-anxiety, so-called eco-anxiety. So a distress, personal distress that is related to the climate crisis. Some symptoms that were identified in the literature are rumination, the guilt, the frustration regarding environmental changes, and some specific aspects of anxiety. Regarding the eating behaviors, as Rachel Rodgers said, we can see that we have some people who can cope with the eating behaviors related to the eco-anxiety. So, for example, some people can have some dietary shifts, so they can eliminate the meat consumption, or they can prioritize their organic sourcing, or they try to avoid the food waste. But we have also a negative side of the rigidity, pathological rigidity related to eco-anxiety in terms of food and eating behaviors. So we can have the risk of the elimination of the entire food groups, or the extreme rigidity of eating choices, or a dietary restraint that can mirror the traditional eating disorder patterns. And so we are interested in to explore these two different dimensions. I will skip this the slides, but we can introduce the construct of orthorexia nervosa or eco-anxiety, because we know that most of the studies in eating behaviors have focused on the orthorexia and the orthorexia symptoms. So, for example, orthorexia focuses the purity and the quality of foods driven by fixation on the capacity to affect health. So I want to eat only organic foods. I don't want to eat any foods with meat or ultra-processed foods and so on. However, we have some important research gaps. So we know that adaptive dietary changes are known responses to eco-concern, but the disordered eating behaviors within this context remains uninvestigated in the literature. So we don't know what is the link between the eco-concern, the climate change worries, and the disordered eating behaviors. So this preliminary study has two main objectives. One was to develop and validate a new screening measure we call the eco-concern related disordered eating. And the second aim was to map the associations between the eco-concern, some mental health dimensions, and some distinct typologies across different countries. So briefly, the results of two studies for the two aims. The first study recruited participants online in the United States through Prolific, and we have 305 adult participants. And this study tried to explore the psychometric characteristics of the scale, the eco-concern related disorder eating questionnaire. And we found excellent internal consistency of the scale. And we found support for the unidimensional structure of this scale. So one factor model that accounted for 80% of common variance, and the goodness of fit indices were good. These are the items or the of the scale. So if you remember the items that Esben has just shown regarding the eco-concern related eating behaviors, here we can see that we have a specific focus on psychological distress. So, for example, eco-concerns related to food take up a lot of my mental energy. I feel very depressed about how eco-concerns affect my eating and so on. The items with the highest loading in the one-factor solution were item 8. So my eco-concerns related to food are distressing and overwhelming. The item 3, eco-concerns related to food take up a lot of my mental energy. And also the item 6, my eco-concerns related to food have a detrimental impact on my health. And last, the item 7, my eco-concerns related to food are negatively affecting my personal and social life. So after that, we try to explore some different profiles of disordered eating that can be associated with the eco-concern or eco-anxiety. In this second study, we recruited 326 adults across Italy and Germany, and we adopted a Latin plus analysis to identify some subgroups of participants based on the dysfunctional eating behaviors and body image concerns. And the Latin class profile analysis, of course, I will not dive into the statistical aspects of Latin profile analysis, but we identified 4 different subgroups of participants. 40%, 46% of participants were classified at low eating disorder risk, so baseline profile with satisfactory body image and without or with very, very low disorder eating behaviors. Then we have a class 1 with 70% of people with mild weight and shape concerns, which were measured by the eating disorder examination questionnaire. So they have some elevated concerns with the weight and shape, but low binge symptoms. And the class 2 and the class 4 were more problematic. So class 2, we labeled this group as weight shape preoccupation because they had some elevation in some subscales of the eating disorder questionnaire. So dietary restraint, weight and shape concern, and lower body satisfaction. And then the last group, of course, is the tiny group, only 7% of people with high eating disorder symptoms, which were measured by the eating disorder questionnaire. And the interesting thing was to see how these 4 groups can differ in terms of the eco-anxiety or eco-related concerns. So here we have the differences. You can see, for example, that we have some differences. If you look at the last column, we have the post-hoc comparisons across the 4 groups. So we found that the class 2, but also the class 4, with the Bonferroni adjustments, reported greater eco-concern-related disorder eating than the people in the class 1, so with mild weight shape concerns. And they also reported greater feelings of guilt and preoccupation regarding foods, but we found no differences across the 4 subgroups in terms of climate change, worry, preoccupations, and eco-related eating behaviors. So we have some differences on specific disorder eating measures, but we had no significant differences in some generic climate change anxiety scales. So our conclusions of this preliminary study is that there are a subgroup of individuals that we labeled as weight shape preoccupation or people with eating disorder symptoms that can report greater disorder eating behaviors that are linked to the eco concerns, but the groups did not differ in other eco concern scales. So it's likely that the eco concern related disorder eating, this new measure, can tap specific aspects of problematic eating that are not measured by the other eco anxiety scales. And so we have a conceptual framework that could be developed based on these results. So the first result is the eco-anxiety, the link between eco-anxiety and disorder eating is very complex. So we have, of course, a general eco-anxiety. We have a traditional disorder eating. And at the intersection of these 2 groups, we can try to identify a specific subgroup with disorder eating that can be linked to the eco concerns. The implications for the practice. So we know that we need a screening for measuring this eating behavior eating behaviors that are related to the eco concerns, and so this measure seems promising to be a good screening a measure, and we need to identify the vulnerable populations. So because clinicians can recognize the patients presenting with traditional weight or shape concerns can be at higher risk of internalizing the climate messaging into severe pathology. Of course, we will try to recruit more people with this questionnaire. And of course, the main limitation is that we only collected cross-sectional data, so we are not able to identify causal relationship between the eco-anxiety and disorder eating. So we need more longitudinal studies to try to detect these causal associations. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And we're already starting to see, aren't we, with the work that's presented today, how different individuals might respond to some of their concerns about what's happening in relation to climate change, and some worries around that, particularly around disordered eating. So fantastic and really, really interesting findings. Thank you. So we're going to move on to our reflections part of today before we finish up with the roundtable discussions. So now I'm going to invite up Jacinthe, Annie, Alvaro and Naomi, and Gianluca again, unless you were having a little bit of a rest, to just reflect on how you found the experience of conducting cross-cultural research. And I know you've got some points to go through.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great pleasure to be here in Loughborough. I really like your campus. So just to put you in a little context, like has been told you at the beginning, we are a subgroup of researchers from our international team doing research about now climate change and eating disorder, body image. But before starting that study, we needed to think how we could have good measures. So that's always the point when we want to measure variables. So how can we do that? So we were a little group from that bigger group to be like a little team to put together a standard translation procedure. So, and we decided how we should do it, and we shared this procedure to all the countries and non-English countries, I should say. So how we could do that, because of course, for me, I'm a French Canadian, so we needed good French measures, and we have in Italy, Japan, Spain. So yeah, and now I think it's you, Alvaro. It's your turn now. Yeah.
Just to focus, I would like to note only two main issues to highlight to these two topics that when we seem to conduct cross-cultural research, one is the sample bias, because when you review academic literature, you can see that many of the research are from developed Anglo-Saxon countries. There are underrepresentation of other countries, no? And then interesting the cross-cultural, because it is estimated that only with the 12% of population we generalize the theory in the world, no? Because the main research is on focusing on sampling in these countries, but not the rest of the world. But contrary, we generalize the theory and the knowledge around the world, no? With the theory, but sometimes it's not applied. It's not possible to apply to other, because we don't know this context. And then one topic is that we need to give voice to this unrepresented or underrepresentative context, no? With other, how just try to collect more sample in these countries, no? But the second issue arises if we wish to expand our sampling, no, to geographically representative areas, which at times cover a vast percentage of the world's population, no, like China, India, Brazil. We incorporate these countries, no. We require measurement tools that reflect the same meanings. This is a big challenge for us if we want to take sample with this in this context. That is to say that whether the construct is measured generally mean the same things, no, across different cultures. That's the concept that we are measuring exists in the same manner within the other countries. For example, imagine collectivist culture like Japan or individualistic culture like US. No? Probably they perceive in different way some of the construct. No, then it's not easy to measure this in different culture. No. Mere literally translation frequently destroy the cultural nuance. Then we suggest that we require rigorous process of back translation and cultural rather than linguistic or literal adaptation. No? And this is what we are going to focus now with Hayami, no? And Naomi, explain how we deal with this to represent other culture, no? And context.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I just go here? Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Slide.
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain the procedure we did for translation. So firstly, we discussed how to develop our questionnaire in each country because we wanted to make sure every country has exactly the same meaning from the English version. So firstly, we checked for existing translations because in each country has a different situation. In Japan, we didn't actually have many Japanese version of the measurement we used. So each country, and then I'm not sure how many, neither didn't. Yeah, we actually didn't find most of the measurement in our countries. So we had to translate most of them actually. Then we did translation process, which includes back translation. And we followed that back translation technique was undertaken.
Switch.
Oh,
There's the other one. Here it is.
all right, thank you. So we follow that methods. It's already kind of established. And firstly, we did initial translation, which was conducted by at least 2 independent native speakers of our language. And then we did comparison, and the 2 translated versions were compared, and there were some discrepancies. So we discussed and within the team in each country, then we've got the first version. Then we moved on the back translation. And the back translation was conducted by at least 2 independent native English speakers. And then we made sure that each country had that independent native English speakers to make sure that the meaning is consistent. Then again, we did comparison, the 2 English versions, and of course there are discrepancies between 2 versions. So we discussed and within the team, and then translation was finalized. Then the final version was conducted in a pilot testing. And basically, we conducted a pilot test with 3 to 5 persons from the target population and university students. And I've done mine with my research students in our research team, which is not in this project. And they gave us some feedback, and also we could make sure that all the data was fine. But actually, that pilot testing was very useful to find out small issues because we researchers thought that this final version is, kind of perfect, but no, that never came actually.
No.
Yeah. So actually, that pilot, the participants in the pilot testing, they gave us some answers. Some questions that sounded a little bit like strange, and then some words were not really understandable because they are not very familiar with. So in that cases, we had to go back to that English version and the translated version to see how we can fix it, the problem. So there we had to work on that minor changes again and again to fix, and then sometimes we need to add some explanation in the bracket to make sure everyone can understand that word. And finally, we're nearly done. And then, we just started in Japan, and then it's going well now.
Good.
Yeah, we went through, each country, went through that process, to make sure that meaning. Yeah, thank you.
No, I'll be good. I just need to figure out. Okay, so again, like Jacinthe, I'm a French speaking from Canada, and I'm very happy to be here. So we'll be discussing some challenges. There's many more, but of course, these are the ones we encountered so far. So what did we not necessarily expect? First thing is that, we thought sociodemographic questions would be kind of straightforward and easy, but that's not the case. Like in different countries, some questions can not be asked. Let's say, for example, questions about sex, gender, sexual orientation in Morocco, in Cameroon, or in other countries. These questions should not be included because it's against the law. And if they answer the wrong answer, for example, they could be put in prison, in jail. So, this was something we did not expect because in our country, let's say in Canada and many other countries, this was not an issue. So when we discussed it with other researchers and collaborators, they were saying, no, this cannot be included. We also had a question about we were expecting it a bit more, but still it was an issue. A question about weight and height. We have this system in some countries, it's in meters, other countries it's in
Feet.
Feet, thank you. And then kilograms or pounds. So yeah, it's quite hectic somehow because we had to do two different questions, and we had to put a lot of possibilities in answers. So anyways, that was something we had to adjust. And some words that we selected, even in the same language, could not be understood in different countries. So again, because I'm French speaking, I'm going to talk about French. Height in French, we say it one way, but in other countries who speak French, where they speak French, they don't say it the same way than in Canada. So we had to put different words, or again, like Naomi was saying, some clarifications into brackets. Anyway, so we weren't, you take for granted that everyone speaks French the same way, but no, it's the same with English, I guess, and other countries. And so for the ethic committees, we had each country, had to go through an ethic committee. And obviously, some ethic committees do not think the same way, right? So we had to do a lot of adjustment around that. Yeah. And then what will happen next, what we are expecting, and of course, more things will be happening. We'll have some problems for issues with internal consistency for sure. This should vary from one language to the other. So one way we've been thinking about settling it down would be to include a validation process in which we would select, let's say, the items that best represent like all the countries involved, and then we could maybe stick to these these items. It would also allow us to shorten the versions of the questionnaires we're using, and then to maybe generalize. And of course, there will be a lot of fun cleaning up the data. It's going to be time consuming. I'm going to let Jacinthe finish.
Final word, yeah. So beyond the data, I think the issue is not about having appropriate measures or instruments to measure across different countries, but It's also how we go about assessing or collaborating with researchers from other cultures. So how we can put ideas together, how we think about eating disorders, body appreciation, body satisfactions. So, and how an important challenge that we have is how we can achieve true co-creation beyond, oh, sorry, there's a French accent, beyond mere collaboration. So this is still what we are doing, but as has been said, or Merita, I think we are a nice group, so we don't have power struggle. So I think it's really helpful and we can do great things. So thank you now. So we can have time for questions and to discuss. Now I think you heard us a lot talking, so now we'd like to hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you everyone.